Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to take a look at the Z series 50mm 1.8 and compare that directly to the Z series 35mm 1.8 to see which one of these f1.8 prime lenses is going to be best suited for you. They're both 1.8 primes and we're going to have a look at which one of these performs best and which one is going to be the one that's right for you. I know my favourite between these two, and that is the 50mm 1.8, but that is obviously down to the particular focal length that I like shooting with. This video is currently being recorded on a 50mm 1.8 using AFF and face tracking. That's also what allows me to quickly switch from subject back to face, back to subject, back to face. You guys might not have such a preference, so it might be useful for you to compare the two lenses in terms of image quality. Also, we're going to look at video autofocus performance between the two. Is one faster than the other? Does one have less focus breathing than the other? Really, the reason that I'm doing this is because to help you guys decide between the 35 or the 50 to figure out which lens is going to be best for you. So, what we're going to look at first of all is image quality. We're going to head over to Lightroom and take a look at some pictures taken with the 50 versus some pictures taken with the 35.
Right, so here's the first comparison between the two. We have the 35mm lens on the left hand side and the 50mm lens on the right hand side. They're both at f1.8 wide open, so obviously they're different focal lengths. The 50mm shots are taken from slightly further back to try and get the focal lengths as similar as possible to make it a fair comparison. So let's go take a look at 1:1 first of all. So you can see at 1:1 with the 35 and the 50, there is almost nothing between them. Maybe slightly a bit more contrasty on the 35. They're almost identical. They're both wide open at 1.8. This is at the middle of the frame, so if we go over look right over at the edge of the frame. Okay, so we can start to see that towards the edge the 50 is definitely sharper at 1.8 than the 35 is at 1.8. And depth of field wise, as you would expect, they are pretty much identical. We'll just have a quick look at 2:1. Yeah, and you can see, especially, so this is at the edge of the frame. The 50mm on the right is definitely sharper than the 35mm at the edges, which I suppose you'd kind of expect for it being a longer focal length. Just have a look back at the center. Okay, it's definitely close, but I think the 50 is maybe slightly sharper. If we're talking real world performance, there's no real world performance difference at the center, but definitely at the edges the 50 is sharper. See again here on the left hand side of the frame, the 35 just looks a tiny bit softer here than the 50 does. Okay, so here we are with both lenses at f2.8. So again, the 35 on the left and the 50 on the right. So let's go take a look. Okay, so at 1:1 at f2.8, again, the difference in sharpness is so similar at the center of the frame. So we'll have a look at corner sharpness. And again, the 50mm, kind of as you would expect, is sharper at the edges of the frame, and this is kind of right to the edge of the frame. So we'll just have a quick look at 2:1. And again, we can see that the 50mm is just sharper than the 35 at the corners. But at the center, they're so similar, it's hard to tell the difference. If we have a quick look at the depth of field, so the depth of field between the two at 2:1 is identical. It is just that corner sharpness by the looks of it. Yeah, so over in this left hand corner again, the 50mm lens just looks sharper than the 35, even stopped down to 2.8. Here we are at f5.6. We have the 35 on the left and the 50 on the right again, both stopped down to f5.6. So let's go take a look. So zoomed in first of all to 1:1, and again, as always has been the case in the center, it's really hard to tell the difference at 1:1. So at 2:1 as well, it's really difficult to kind of pick any differences out between the two. Grab a look at the corner sharpness. So at 1:1, the 50 still looks slightly sharper. It maybe looks a bit more even, but the 50 is still slightly sharper. At 2:1, the 50mm is definitely the sharper of the two. So looking at the depth of field between the two at 1:1, again, is almost identical. At 2:1, pretty much exactly what you would expect, really. Both set to f5.6. So I'm going to conclude that there's no real need for us to go any higher than f5.6, where results if we go up to f8 and f11. So I'll conclude that the 50 is ever so slightly sharper in the center, but definitely noticeably sharper in the corner. Both lenses are incredibly fast to focus, as we can quite clearly see, but I do feel like it's the 35mm lens that is ever so slightly faster to focus from close to distant. This could be down to the fact that the 35mm does have dual autofocus motors, whereas the 50mm lens does not. There isn't that much difference between them, but watching the videos backwards, see that the 35 is the one that's at faster focusing.
What I want to do going forward is, as we kind of get some of the new lenses and some of the new prime lenses, we're going to see which one the best is in terms of picture quality, sharpness, focus speed, that type of stuff. When the other prime lenses come along as well, we'll be able to then compare them against either the 50 or the 85, depending on which one is the one that kind of tops out as being the sharpest and the best controlled and the fastest to focus. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you found this video useful. Switch from subject, back to face, back to subject, back to face, subject, face, subject. You get the idea. Probably hasn't worked, I don't know. Who knows? Brilliant.